Elena picked up the cheap ballpoint pen and signed her name. No tears, no trembling, no begging for the house, the cars, or the 8 years she'd poured into this marriage. Derek laughed out loud. "That's it? You're not even going to fight?" His mother, Victoria, raised her champagne glass, right there in the lawyer's office. "Good riddance to the help." Elena stood up, tucked her worn purse under her arm, and walked out with $40 to her name. They thought they'd just watched a woman surrender. They had no idea they'd just triggered a 3-year trap designed to take everything they had. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Sign here, here, and initial here. The lawyer's pen tapped the documents like a metronome, counting down the end of Elena Marsh's marriage. She picked up the cheap ballpoint pen the firm provided for clients who couldn't afford their own. Derek Whitmore leaned back in his chair and checked his Patek Philippe. "Can we speed this up? I have lunch at Menton at 12:30. "Derek," his mother Victoria cut in, "let her take her time. This is probably the most important decision she's made in 8 years. The only decision, really. She's certainly never made any others." The lawyer, a thin man named Patterson, slid page after page in front of Elena. "Mrs. Whitmore waives all claim to the Beacon Hill residence." Elena signed. "Mrs. Whitmore waives all claim to the vacation properties in Aspen and Martha's Vineyard." Elena signed. "Mrs. Whitmore waives all claim to Mr. Whitmore's stock portfolio, business interests, and future earnings." Elena signed. "Mrs. Whitmore acknowledges that the prenuptial agreement entitles her to no spousal support, given the circumstances." Victoria made a sound that was almost a laugh. "The circumstances. That's a polite way of saying she contributed nothing." Elena signed. Derek leaned forward. "This is weird. Why aren't you fighting?" Elena looked up. Her eyes met his for the first time since she'd sat down. "What would I be fighting for, Derek?" "I don't know. The lake house? You always loved that dump. Some kind of settlement? A few thousand to tide you over while you figure out how to actually survive in the real world?" "I don't want anything from you." "Nothing?" Derek's voice carried genuine confusion. 8 years and you want nothing? "I want the dog." Victoria choked on her sparkling water. "The dog?" "Biscuit. I want to keep Biscuit." Derek stared at her for a long moment. Then he burst out laughing. "The dog. She wants the dog." He wiped his eyes. "Patterson, make a note. Elena Marsh walks away from a $50 million estate, and her only request is a golden retriever that sheds on my Italian carpets." "Take it," Victoria said, waving her hand dismissively. "It smells anyway." "Done." Derek was still laughing. "Consider it your entire settlement. 8 years of marriage, and you get a dog that cost me $400 from a breeder?" Elena closed the folder and slid it back across the table. "We're done here." She stood up. Her cardigan was beige, faded at the elbows. Her shoes were practical flats that had seen better days. She carried a purse she'd bought at a thrift store 6 years ago. Victoria looked her up and down and sighed theatrically. "Elena, darling, one last piece of advice. When you're looking for your next meal ticket, perhaps invest in some better clothes. You look like you're about to ask me if I want fries with that." "I'll keep that in mind, Victoria." "And do something about your hair. You're 43 years old. You can't keep pulling it back in that sad little bun like you're cleaning houses for a living." Elena paused at the door. "Is there anything else?" Derek stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Actually, yes. I'm curious. 8 years, Elena. 8 years of living in my house, spending my money, going to my parties, and you walk out without a fight. I have to ask, did any of it mean anything to you?" Elena turned around slowly. Did it mean anything to me? Yeah. The marriage. Us. Any of it. Elena walked back toward the table. Her footsteps were quiet on the expensive carpet. She stopped directly in front of Derek. You want to know if it meant anything? I asked, didn't I? Elena reached out and touched the watch on his wrist. The Patek Philippe she had saved for 3 years to buy him for his 40th birthday. I worked double shifts at 2 jobs for 36 months to buy you this watch, Derek. I wanted you to have something special. Something that showed you I loved you before you had any of this. Derek pulled his wrist away. So? So you're wearing it to your divorce proceedings while your 24-year-old girlfriend waits in your car. Her name is Megan. I know her name. I saw her text messages. The room went very quiet. Victoria shifted uncomfortably. Derek, we should really be going. What text messages? Derek asked, his voice hardening. The one she accidentally sent to your home phone instead of your cell. Last night was amazing, baby. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. That was my personal favorite. Very poetic. Derek's face flushed red. You read my messages? I was making your favorite dinner when it came through. Pot roast, your grandmother's recipe. The one I learned to make because you said it reminded you of being happy. That's an invasion of privacy. Elena laughed. It was a strange sound in the sterile conference room. Soft. Almost sad. You're divorcing me for irreconcilable differences, Derek. You told these lawyers I was a lazy, ungrateful leech who refused to support your career. You forgot to mention you'd been sleeping with your assistant for 8 months. Patterson cleared his throat. Mrs. Whitmore, the proceedings are complete. There's no need to... No need to what? Tell the truth? Elena shook her head. Don't worry, Patterson. I'm not going to contest anything. I signed your papers. I'm taking my dog. I'm walking out with $40 in my checking account. You all win. She turned back to Derek. But I want you to remember something. I want you to remember this exact moment. The way you're looking at me right now. The way your mother is smirking behind her champagne glass. The way you think you've gotten away with something. Is that a threat? No, it's a timestamp. A timestamp. Elena smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. In my experience, Derek, life has a way of balancing the scales. You don't have to believe in karma. Karma believes in you. She walked to the door. Elena, Derek's voice stopped her. Where are you going to go? You have no money, no job, no family. You have nothing. Elena opened the door. Goodbye, Derek. I hope she's worth it. She walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. Derek dropped back into his chair. What the hell was that? Drama, Victoria said, finishing her champagne. Poor thing has nothing else left. Let her have her little exit speech. By next week, she'll be calling from a homeless shelter, begging you to take her back. You think so? Darling, I've seen 100 women like Elena. They cling to men like you because they can't survive on their own. She'll crash and burn within a month. 2, at most. Patterson gathered the documents. I'll file these with the court this afternoon. The divorce will be finalized within 30 days. Derek nodded, but his eyes were still on the door. That thing she said, about the timestamp. Ignore it, Victoria stood up, gathering her fur coat. She's trying to rattle you. It's the only power she has left. Yeah, you're probably right. Of course I'm right. Now come. Megan is waiting, and I need to have a conversation with that girl about appropriate attire for the Harbor Club dinner next week. If she shows up in another one of those tight little dresses, I'm going to have a stroke. They walked out of the conference room, already forgetting Elena Marsh. They didn't notice the junior paralegal in the corner. Her name was Jessica, 26 years old. She had watched the entire proceeding without saying a word. Now she pulled out her phone. Her fingers typed quickly. "It's done. She signed everything. They were even worse than we expected." The response came in seconds. "Good. How is she?" "Calm. Scary calm. She gave a speech about karma." That's Elena. She couldn't resist. "What happens now?" "Now? Now we wait 3 years. And then we take everything they have." Jessica put her phone away and gathered her notes. She had been Elena's roommate in college. She had watched Elena work 3 jobs to pay her tuition, while Derek Whitmore coasted through on family money. She had also watched Elena spend every night for the past 3 years working on something in secret. Something Derek didn't know about. Something that was about to change everything. Elena walked out of Henderson and Associates into the February cold. The wind hit her like a slap. She had no coat. She had no car. She had a phone that would be disconnected by midnight and a checking account with $42. She walked to the curb. A black Lincoln Town Car was waiting. The back door opened. Elena climbed in. Margaret Chen was behind the wheel. 54 years old, steel gray hair. The only person who had believed in Elena when no one else did. "How bad?" "Victoria said I looked like I was about to ask her if she wanted fries with that." "That woman is a menace to society." Margaret pulled into traffic. "And Derek? He gave me the dog and called it my entire settlement." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "Did you tell them about the patent?" "No." "The algorithm?" "No." "The fact that you've been contacted by the largest shipping company in the world?" "Definitely not." Margaret reached into the passenger seat and handed back a folder. "It came through this morning. Official approval." Elena opened it. United States Patent and Trademark Office. Patent number US 11,847,632. Invention: Predictive Logistics Routing Algorithm. Inventor: Elena Marsh. Elena stared at the document. 3 years. For 3 years, while Derek slept until noon, and Victoria criticized everything she wore, and Megan sent dirty text messages to Elena's husband, she had been working. Every night after Derek passed out from too much scotch. Every morning before anyone else woke up. In the cramped little study that Derek called her crying room. She had built something. An algorithm that could predict shipping disruptions before they happened. That could reduce delivery times by 40%. That could save companies hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Derek's company, Whitmore Freight Solutions, used a logistics system that he bragged about constantly. "Our proprietary technology," he called it, "developed by my team in California." Elena had written every line of that code. But here was the thing Derek didn't know. The code running Whitmore Freight was version 1.0. Basic. Limited. Full of bugs that Elena had left in on purpose. The code Elena had just patented was version 4.7. Revolutionary. Flawless. And it belonged entirely to her. "Mr. Caldwell called again," Margaret said. Richard Caldwell, 73 years old, founder of Caldwell Maritime Group, a man whose business decisions moved stock markets. He had discovered Elena's work 6 months ago when one of his analysts stumbled across an academic paper she'd published under a fake name. He had flown to Boston 3 times since then. He had offered her $20 million for licensing rights. She had said no. "Tell him I'm ready to meet." "When?" "Tomorrow, after the divorce is filed." "And then?" Elena looked out the window at the city passing by, the city where she had been invisible for 8 years, where she had smiled at parties and nodded at dinners, and pretended not to notice when Derek's friends looked through her like she wasn't there. Then I take back everything they stole from me. What exactly did they steal? My work, my dignity, my belief that I was worth something. Elena turned from the window. 8 years, Margaret. 8 years of being told I was lucky to be there, that I should be grateful, that without Derek, I was nothing. And now? Now I'm going to show them what nothing looks like. What does that mean? Elena opened her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. It was silver, no bigger than her thumb. You know what's on here? The algorithm? No, this is something else. This is every contract Whitmore Freight has signed in the past 3 years, every financial statement, every email between Derek and his investors. Margaret nearly swerved into oncoming traffic. How did you get that? I was his wife, Margaret. I had access to everything. He just never bothered to change the passwords because he assumed I was too stupid to understand what I was looking at. That's corporate espionage. No, it's insurance. Elena tucked the drive back into her purse. I'm not going to use it unless I have to. But if Derek tries to claim my algorithm as his own, if he tries to say I developed it using his company's resources, I have proof that I didn't. I have proof of exactly when I worked on what, and exactly what Whitmore Freight's systems looked like, before and after. You've been planning this for 3 years. Yes. Since when? Since the text message? Since before that, Elena's voice went quiet. Since the first time Victoria called me the help at a family dinner, and Derek didn't say a word. Since the first time I realized that I wasn't his wife. I was his prop. Something to make him look good until he didn't need me anymore. Why didn't you leave then? Because I had nothing, Margaret. No money, no degree, no family, no proof that I was worth anything. She held up the folder with her patent. Now I have proof. The car turned onto the highway, heading north toward the lake house. What happens to Derek? Margaret asked. I don't know yet. That depends on him. What do you mean? I mean he has a choice. He can let me go quietly and build his life with Megan and never think about me again. Or he can try to take credit for my work. He can try to claim the algorithm. He can try to destroy me. And if he does? Elena smiled. It was the same smile she'd given Derek in the conference room. Soft, sad, absolutely terrifying. Then I destroy him first. In the penthouse on Beacon Hill, Derek Whitmore popped open a bottle of Dom Perignon. Megan was curled up on the white leather couch, still wearing his bathrobe. Is it done? It's done. She signed everything. Everything? Everything. The houses, the cars, the investments. She walked away with a dog and a cardigan that probably cost less than your nail appointment. Megan squealed and jumped up to kiss him. I knew it. I told you she wouldn't fight. Women like that never do. They don't have the backbone. Victoria walked in, having taken a separate car. She set her purse down with a disapproving look at Megan's bare legs. Is she staying for dinner? Mother. I'm just asking. The staff will need to know how many place settings. Yes, she's staying. She's staying permanently, actually. Megan is moving in. Victoria's expression didn't change. How wonderful. You don't have to pretend to be happy about it. I'm not pretending anything, darling. I'm simply observing that you've traded one unsuitable woman for another. At least Elena could hold a conversation at dinner parties without mentioning her Instagram followers. Hey, Megan protested. Victoria. Derek's voice carried a warning. Fine, I'll be civil. Victoria accepted a glass of champagne. To new beginnings. made this one last longer than the last. They clinked glasses. Derek walked to the window and looked out at the city. For some reason, he couldn't get Elena's face out of his mind. Not the tired, defeated woman who had sat across from him in the conference room. The woman who had turned around at the door. The one who had smiled and called it a time stamp. "You're thinking about her." Derek turned. Megan was watching him with narrowed eyes. "I'm not." "You are. I can tell. You get this look on your face whenever you think about her." "What look?" "Like you're wondering if you made a mistake." "I didn't make a mistake." Derek drained his champagne. Elena was dead weight. She never understood what it took to succeed. She was happy living small, staying invisible, being nothing. Then why do you look scared? Derek laughed. It came out too loud. "Scared? Of what? Elena? She walked out of here with $40 and a rescue dog. What's she gonna do? Bark at me?" "I don't know. That thing she said about karma." She was bluffing, trying to get in my head. Classic manipulation tactic. "If you say so." "I know so." Derek poured himself another glass. "Elena Marsh is going to disappear. She's going to work some minimum wage job and live in some sad little apartment and spend the rest of her life wondering what went wrong. That's what happens to people like her. They fade away." But even as he said it, something nagged at him. Something about the way she had signed those papers. No hesitation. No reading the fine print. No asking for clarifications. Like she already knew exactly what was in them. Like she had already planned what came next. Derek shook off the thought. Elena was nobody. And nobodies didn't come back. 300 miles north, Elena pulled up to the lake house. It was small, run down. The porch sagged on one side, and the windows were cloudy with age. Derek had called it a dump, a worthless piece of property that wasn't even worth mentioning in the divorce. He had no idea what it really was. Elena unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The interior had been completely transformed. New hardwood floors, modern kitchen, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the frozen lake, state-of-the-art computer equipment set up in what used to be a storage closet. Biscuit bounded in and immediately claimed his spot by the fireplace. Elena walked to the window. The sun was setting over the lake, painting the ice in shades of gold and crimson. She pulled out her phone and dialed. "Ms. Marsh." The voice on the other end was British, warm, and belonged to a man who had built an empire from nothing. "I've been expecting your call." "Mr. Caldwell, I'm ready." "Excellent. My plane will be in Boston by 9 tomorrow morning. Shall I have a car sent to the lake house?" "That won't be necessary. I'll drive myself." "Independent as always. I like that." A pause. "Elena, I've waited 6 months for this call. May I ask what changed?" Elena looked at her reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back at her wasn't the same woman who had sat in that conference room this morning. That woman had been playing a part. This woman was done pretending. "I used to think that success meant proving yourself to the people who doubted you, Mr. Caldwell. Showing them they were wrong. Making them regret what they did. And now? Now I realize that the best revenge isn't proving anything to anyone. It's building something so big that they become irrelevant. It's not about making them see your worth. It's about reaching a point where their opinion simply doesn't matter anymore." "That's very evolved of you." "I've had 3 years to think about it." "And the Whitmores? Do you plan to destroy them?" Elena considered the question. "No. I plan to build my empire. What happens to them in the process is their problem, not mine." "Even after everything they did?" "Mr. Caldwell, I spent 8 years being small because they told me I had to be. I'm not going to spend the next 8 years being angry because they were wrong. Anger keeps you connected to the past. I'd rather invest that energy in my future. Then why did you wait until the divorce was final? Elena smiled. Because I wanted it clean. I wanted there to be no question, no legal claim, no argument that anything I build from here belongs to anyone but me. Derek thinks he won today. He thinks he got rid of dead weight. I wanted him to have that victory. Why? Because when the scales finally balance, I want him to remember today. I want him to remember toasting champagne and laughing at me and calling me nothing. I want him to remember that I gave him every chance to be decent, and he chose this instead. That sounds a little like revenge. No, Mr. Caldwell. Revenge is about hurting someone. This is about freedom. I'm finally free of a man who spent 8 years convincing me I was worthless. What he does with his life from here is his business. I have my own life to build. There was a long pause on the line. You know, Elena, I've met a lot of brilliant people in my 73 years. Engineers, inventors, visionaries. But I've met very few who are both brilliant and wise. Most geniuses destroy themselves because they can't let go of old wounds. I'm not interested in destruction, Mr. Caldwell. I'm interested in creation. Then I look forward to seeing what you create. See you tomorrow. Elena hung up. She stood at the window for a long time, watching the last light fade from the sky. Tomorrow, she would meet with one of the richest men in the world. Tomorrow, she would sign a deal that would make her a billionaire. Tomorrow, the future would begin. But tonight, she allowed herself one moment to remember the woman who had walked into that conference room this morning. The woman who had worn a faded cardigan and carried a thrift store purse and had $40 to her name. The woman who had been called the help by people who had no idea what she was capable of. That woman was gone now, and in her place stood someone new, someone who had learned that silence wasn't weakness. Silence was patience. Silence was strategy. Silence was the sound of a woman building an empire, while everyone around her assumed she was falling apart. Elena turned from the window and got to work. 3 years. That's how long she had waited. 3 years of planning. 3 years of building. 3 years of being underestimated. The countdown was over. The timer had reached 0. And somewhere in Boston, a man who had just thrown away his greatest asset was toasting champagne, completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. Not because Elena hated him, but because she had simply stopped needing him. And that, in the end, was the most devastating thing of all. 3 years passed, like a slow poison working through Derek Whitmore's veins. He didn't notice it at first. The symptoms were small. A rejected invitation here, a canceled meeting there, a loan application that took longer than expected. Nothing that couldn't be explained away by market fluctuations or bad timing or the economy. But by the 3rd winter after the divorce, Derek couldn't ignore it anymore. What do you mean, declined? He was standing in the kitchen of the Beacon Hill penthouse, his phone pressed to his ear, his knuckles white around the device. I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore. The voice on the other end belonged to his banker at First Boston Trust. The credit committee reviewed your application, and, given Whitmore Freight's current financial position, we're unable to extend additional credit at this time. Current financial position? We had our best quarter in company history 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago, sir. Your most recent filings show a 37% decline in revenue. Your operating costs have increased. Your debt-to-equity ratio is concerning. It's a temporary setback. Every company has them. I understand, sir. But temporary setbacks don't typically last 18 months. Derek hung up without saying goodbye. He walked to the window and stared out at the city. The same view that had made him feel like a king 3 years ago now felt like a prison cell with expensive wallpaper. "Baby?" Megan's voice floated in from the bedroom. "Are you coming back to bed?" "In a minute." "You said that an hour ago. What's wrong?" Derek didn't answer. He was looking at the stack of bills on the kitchen counter. The mortgage payment that was 60 days late. The insurance premium that had been canceled for non-payment. The letter from the IRS requesting documentation for an audit. 3 years ago, he had toasted champagne over Elena's departure. Now, he couldn't afford the champagne. Megan appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a silk robe that had cost $3,000. She had gained weight since the wedding. Her hair, once a vibrant blonde, was showing dark roots. She spent most of her days on the couch, scrolling through Instagram and complaining about influencers who had more followers than her. "Derek, I need to talk to you about something." "Not now, Megan." "It's important." "I said not now." "It's about money." Derek turned around slowly. "What about money?" "My credit card got declined at Nordstrom yesterday. The salesperson looked at me like I was some kind of homeless person. It was humiliating." "Which credit card?" "The black one, the one you said had no limit." Derek rubbed his temples. "That card was canceled 2 months ago." "What? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I've been busy trying to keep this company alive." "Well, what am I supposed to use? I have a spa appointment tomorrow, and I need new shoes for the Harbor Club dinner next week." "We're not going to the Harbor Club dinner." Megan stared at him. "What do you mean we're not going? We always go to the Harbor Club dinner." "We weren't invited." "That's impossible. We're members." "We were members. Past tense. The membership was suspended 3 months ago." "Suspended? For what?" "For not paying the dues, Megan. For not paying the $30,000 annual dues that I can't afford because I'm hemorrhaging money trying to keep a roof over our heads." Megan's face went pale. "Derek, what's going on? You said the company was doing fine. You said—" "I lied." The words hung in the air between them. "You lied?" "I've been lying for 2 years. The company is failing. Our contracts are disappearing. Our clients are leaving. And I don't know why." He walked to the counter and picked up a folder. Inside were financial statements, client letters, market analyses. 3 years ago, we had 47 major contracts. Today, we have 12. Every time I try to sign a new client, they go with someone else. Every time I try to renew an existing contract, they find an excuse to leave. Maybe you need better salespeople. It's not the salespeople, Megan. It's something else. Something I can't figure out. Like what? Derek threw the folder on the counter. Papers scattered across the marble. Like the fact that every single client we've lost has signed with companies that use the same logistics software. Like the fact that our own system, the system I built this company on, suddenly stopped working properly 18 months ago. Like the fact that I'm getting outbid on every contract by margins that shouldn't be possible. What does that mean? It means someone is targeting us. Someone with deep pockets and better technology. Someone who knows exactly how to hurt us where it counts. Megan was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question Derek had been avoiding. Do you think it's her? Her. Elena, your ex-wife. Derek laughed. It was a hollow sound. Elena? Megan, Elena walked out of here with $40 and a dog. She doesn't know anything about logistics software. She doesn't have connections in the industry. She's probably waiting tables somewhere, trying to make rent. Then why do you get that look on your face every time someone mentions her name? What look? That look. The one you're making right now. Like you're scared of something. I'm not scared of Elena. Then why haven't you searched for her? In 3 years, you've never once tried to find out what happened to her. Derek didn't answer. The truth was, he had tried. Once. About 6 months after the divorce, when the first contract fell through, and he started to feel uneasy. He had hired a private investigator to find out where Elena was living. The investigator came back with nothing. No address, no employment records, no credit card activity, no social media presence. It was like Elena Marsh had vanished from the face of the earth, or like she had become someone else entirely. It doesn't matter, Derek said finally. Elena isn't the problem. The problem is the market. The problem is competition. The problem is that I need a major win to turn this company around, and I'm running out of options. What kind of major win? There's an event next month, the Winter Solstice Gala at the Fairmont. Richard Caldwell is hosting. Who's Richard Caldwell? Only the most powerful man in the shipping industry. He owns Caldwell Maritime Group. Ports, ships, logistics networks across 3 continents. If I could get 5 minutes with him, if I could pitch him on a partnership with Whitmore Freight, then do it. Go to the party. It's not that simple. The gala is invitation only. The guest list is curated by Caldwell's personal team. I've tried every connection I have. No one can get me in. Megan was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised him. Your mother might be able to help. My mother? She knows people. Old money people. The kind who get invited to things like this. Derek shook his head. My mother's social capital has been declining as fast as mine. The old families can smell failure. They've been distancing themselves for months. Then find another way. You always find another way. Derek looked at his wife. For just a moment, he saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen in years. Something that looked almost like faith. Then she ruined it. Because if you don't fix this, Derek, I'm leaving. I didn't sign up for poverty. I didn't sign up for declined credit cards and canceled memberships and staying home while everyone else goes to parties. Megan, I mean it. I gave up my career for you. Your career. You were an administrative assistant making $40,000 a year. I was an influencer with potential. You had 3,000 followers. I had a brand. I had opportunities. And I gave them all up because you promised me a certain lifestyle. If you can't deliver that lifestyle, then what exactly am I doing here? Derek stared at her. For the first time, he saw Megan clearly. Not the young, beautiful woman who had made him feel powerful. Not the exciting affair that had validated his ego. Just a shallow, grasping person who had attached herself to him for his money, and was now realizing the money was running out. He thought about Elena. Elena, who had never asked him for anything. Elena, who had been content with the lake house and the quiet life. Elena, who had worked beside him in the early days when Whitmore Freight was just a dream, and a second-hand desk in a rented office. Elena, who had signed away 8 years of marriage without asking for a single dollar. Why hadn't she asked for anything? The question had haunted him for 3 years. At first, he'd assumed it was shock, then depression, then maybe some misguided sense of pride. But now, standing in his crumbling empire, looking at the woman who was already planning her exit strategy, he wondered if he had missed something important. Elena had always been smarter than people gave her credit for. What if she had known something he didn't? I'll find a way into that gala, Derek said quietly. I'll find a way to save this company. You'd better. Megan turned and walked back to the bedroom. Because I'm not going down with this ship. The door slammed behind her. Derek stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by unpaid bills and failed promises. He picked up his phone and dialed his mother. "Derek." Victoria's voice was cool. "I was wondering when you'd call." "I need your help, Mother." "I assumed as much. You only call when you need something." "Can you get me into the Caldwell Gala?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "The Caldwell Gala? Richard Caldwell's event?" "Yes." "Derek, I've been trying to get into that event for 15 years. The guest list is controlled by Caldwell's personal team. No amount of money or connections can buy an invitation. There has to be a way." "There isn't. The man is notoriously private. He only invites people he personally wants to see." "Then how do I get him to want to see me?" "I don't know, darling. Perhaps if you had something he wanted, some asset or technology that would benefit his business." "But from what I understand, Whitmore Freight doesn't have anything that Caldwell Maritime couldn't build themselves in a weekend." Derek's jaw tightened. "Thank you for the vote of confidence, Mother. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. Richard Caldwell is playing chess while you're still learning checkers. If you want his attention, you need to offer him something extraordinary." "Like what?" "I don't know, but I suggest you figure it out quickly. I've heard rumors, Derek. Rumors about your financial situation. Rumors about Whitmore Freight's declining market share. The vultures are circling." "Let them circle. Don't be naive. These people don't just circle. They attack. And when they do, they don't leave survivors." Derek hung up. He walked back to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Richard Caldwell was preparing for his gala. Somewhere out there, 47 clients who had once trusted Whitmore Freight were now using someone else's logistics software. Somewhere out there, the life Derek had built was crumbling piece by piece. And somewhere out there, Elena Marsh was either living in poverty or doing something he couldn't begin to imagine. His phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Derek frowned and opened it. "Mr. Whitmore, you and a guest are cordially invited to the Richard Caldwell Winter Solstice Gala, December 21st, Fairmont Olympic Hotel. Black tie, 7 p.m. Please RSVP to confirm attendance." Derek stared at the message. His hands started shaking. "Megan!" he shouted. "Megan, get in here!" She appeared in the doorway, looking annoyed. "What now?" "We're in. We got an invitation to the Caldwell Gala." "What? How?" "I don't know. I don't care. We're in." He read the message again, looking for any indication of why he had suddenly been selected. At the bottom, in small text, was a postscript he had initially missed. "P.S. Mr. Caldwell is looking forward to introducing you to his new business partner. He believes you two have history." Derek's blood ran cold. History? What did that mean? Who did he have history with that would be connected to Richard Caldwell? The answer came to him slowly, like a nightmare rising to the surface of consciousness. No, it couldn't be. It was impossible. Elena had nothing. Elena knew no one. Elena was a waitress or a cashier or a homeless woman living under a bridge. Elena couldn't possibly be Richard Caldwell's business partner. Could she? Derek tried to laugh at the absurdity of it. Elena, the woman who couldn't balance a checkbook. Elena, the woman who wore thrift store cardigans. Elena, the woman he had called dead weight to his friends over drinks. That Elena, partnered with a billionaire? No. But the message said, history. Who else could it be? "Derek?" Megan was watching him with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's nothing." "You're white as a sheet." "I said it's nothing. Derek shoved his phone in his pocket. We need to prepare. This gala is our last chance to save Whitmore Freight. I need to be at my best. What should I wear? Something elegant, something classy. This isn't one of your influencer parties. These are the most powerful people on the East Coast. Fine. I'll need money for a new dress. I'll transfer something to your account. How much? Derek closed his eyes. Whatever it takes, Megan. Whatever it takes. She smiled and kissed his cheek. This is going to be great, baby. I can feel it. This is the night that changes everything. She was right about that. It was the night that would change everything. Just not in the way she expected. 2 weeks later, Derek stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting his bow tie for the 15th time. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Will you relax? Megan called from the bedroom. You're going to give yourself a heart attack. I'm fine. You're not fine. You've been pacing for 3 hours. Derek looked at his reflection. He had lost weight since the divorce. The stress had carved lines into his face that hadn't been there before. His hair was thinning. His eyes looked tired. He barely recognized himself. Derek, I need you to zip me up. He walked into the bedroom. Megan was standing in front of the full-length mirror, wearing a dress that was bright pink and covered in sequins. It was exactly the kind of dress he had told her not to buy. What is that? It's my dress. It looks like a disco ball. It's fashion. It's not appropriate for this event. I told you to get something elegant, something understated. This is understated. You should see what I didn't buy. Derek rubbed his temples. Megan, the people at this party wear black, navy, cream, earth tones. They do not wear neon pink. Well, that sounds boring. She turned to look at herself from another angle. I think I look hot. You look like you're going to a nightclub in Miami. Maybe that's the point. Stand out from the crowd. I don't want to stand out. I want to fit in. I want to have serious conversations with serious people about serious business opportunities. I can't do that if my wife looks like she's auditioning for a reality show. Megan's face hardened. You know what, Derek? I'm getting really tired of you criticizing everything I do. My clothes, my hair, my friends, my social media. Nothing is ever good enough for you. This isn't about being good enough. This is about survival. Survival? You're so dramatic. Dramatic? Derek grabbed her shoulders. Do you understand what happens if tonight doesn't go well? We lose the house. We lose the cars. We lose everything. This isn't a party. This is a job interview for the rest of our lives. Megan pulled away from him. Don't touch me like that. Then listen to what I'm saying. I am listening. You're saying that everything is falling apart and it's somehow my fault. I never said it was your fault. You didn't have to. Every time something goes wrong, you look at me like I'm the problem. Like if you had just stayed with Elena, none of this would have happened. Derek froze. What? You heard me. You think I don't know? Every time we fight, you compare me to her. Every time I do something wrong, you get that look in your eyes. That look like you made a mistake. Megan, did you? Did you make a mistake? Do you wish you were still with her? Derek didn't answer. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Megan laughed. It was a bitter sound. Wow, you can't even deny it. This isn't the time for this conversation. When is the time? After you've lost everything? After we're living in some apartment downtown, fighting over who pays for groceries? We're not going to lose everything. That's why we're going to this gala. That's why I need you to change into something appropriate and smile and be charming and help me convince these people that we belong in their world. And what if I don't want to? Then stay home. Megan stared at him. What? I said, stay home. If you're going to be a liability instead of an asset, then I'd rather go alone. You can't go to a gala alone. What will people think? They'll think my wife was feeling unwell. They'll think I'm dedicated enough to my business that I came anyway. They'll think whatever I tell them to think. Megan's eyes filled with tears. You're choosing the company over me. I'm choosing survival over ego. There's a difference. I hate you sometimes. You know that? I know. Helena never would have let you talk to her like this. Derek's jaw tightened. Elena would have supported me. Elena would have worn an appropriate dress and smiled at the right people and helped me build relationships instead of burning them. Then maybe you should have stayed with her. Maybe I should have. The words were out before he could stop them. Megan's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like a little girl who had just been told that Santa Claus wasn't real. Then her expression hardened into something cold. I'll get changed, she said quietly. I'll wear the black dress I bought last year. The boring one you like. Thank you. But this conversation isn't over, Derek. When we get home tonight, we're going to talk about our future. And you're going to decide what you actually want. She walked into the closet and closed the door. Derek stood alone in the bedroom, feeling like he had just won a battle and lost a war. His phone buzzed. Another text from the same unknown number. Car service will arrive at 6:45 p.m. Mr. Caldwell looks forward to the reunion. Reunion. There was that word again. Who was he being reunited with? Derek's stomach churned. He had a terrible feeling that he already knew the answer. But he pushed the thought away. Tonight was about survival. Tonight was about saving Whitmore Freight. Tonight was about convincing Richard Caldwell that he was worthy of a partnership. Whatever history awaited him at that gala, he would deal with it. He had no other choice. At exactly 6:45 p.m., a black limousine pulled up outside the Beacon Hill penthouse. Derek helped Megan into the back seat. She was wearing a simple black dress now, her makeup subdued, her expression cold. She hadn't spoken to him since their fight. The drive to the Fairmont took 30 minutes. Neither of them said a word. When the car pulled up to the hotel, Derek looked out the window at the red carpet, the photographers, the parade of wealthy faces streaming through the gilded doors. This is it, he said quietly. Whatever happens tonight, just smile and let me do the talking. Megan didn't respond. They stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. The doorman checked their invitation and waved them through. Derek stepped into the ballroom and felt the weight of 100 curious eyes turned toward him. He didn't know it yet, but he was walking into the most humiliating night of his life. And the woman who had orchestrated it all was already inside, wearing emerald green and waiting for her moment. The countdown was finally at 0, and Derek Whitmore was about to learn what it felt like to be discarded. The ballroom of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel swallowed Derek Whitmore whole. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over a sea of black suits and elegant gowns. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. Waiters in white gloves circulated with champagne flutes that cost more than most people's car payments. Derek straightened his shoulders and tried to look like he belonged. He didn't. He could feel it in the way people glanced at him and quickly looked away. He could hear it in the conversations that paused when he walked past. 3 years ago, he would have been greeted with handshakes and invitations to join private circles. Tonight, he was invisible. Why is everyone ignoring us? Megan whispered, clutching his arm. They're not ignoring us. That woman just looked at me like I was wearing a garbage bag. Keep your voice down. I need a drink. Later. First, I need to find Richard Caldwell. Derek scanned the room, searching for the legendary shipping magnate. He had studied photographs of Caldwell for weeks. 73 years old, silver hair, sharp blue eyes, usually carried a cane with a silver wolf's head. There! Derek spotted him near the grand staircase, surrounded by a cluster of admirers. Stay here. I'm going to introduce myself. What am I supposed to do while you're schmoozing? Smile, look pleasant. Don't talk to anyone about anything important. Megan rolled her eyes. You really know how to make a girl feel special, Derek. He ignored her and pushed through the crowd toward Caldwell. His heart was pounding. His palms were sweating. This was his last chance. If he could just get 5 minutes with the old man, if he could just pitch him on a partnership, if he could just... Mr. Whitmore! A voice stopped him cold. Derek turned. A man in his 50s stood behind him, wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit. He had a forgettable face and eyes that missed nothing. Do I know you? Derek asked. I'm Mr. Prescott. I represent certain business interests that have been monitoring Whitmore Freight's situation with great interest. Monitoring? What does that mean? It means that your company's financial difficulties have not gone unnoticed, Mr. Whitmore. There are parties who would be very interested in acquiring your assets should you decide to liquidate. Derek's jaw tightened. Whitmore Freight is not for sale. Everything is for sale, Mr. Whitmore. It's simply a matter of price. Prescott handed him a business card. When you're ready to have a serious conversation, call me. Before the banks do. He walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Derek stared at the card. Prescott and Associates. Acquisitions and restructuring. Vultures. They were already circling. He shoved the card in his pocket and continued toward Caldwell. But before he could reach the shipping magnate, the lights in the ballroom dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. A spotlight illuminated the top of the grand staircase. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice announced over the speakers, Mr. Richard Caldwell. The old man stepped into the light. He looked exactly like his photographs, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, leaning on his wolf's head cane. But there was something different about him tonight, something almost playful. Welcome to the Winter Solstice Gala, Caldwell said, his British accent carrying across the silent room. As many of you know, I've spent 40 years building Caldwell Maritime into the largest shipping company in the world. But I'm not here tonight to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the future. Derek leaned forward, holding his breath. For the past 3 years, I've been searching for a partner, Caldwell continued. Someone who understands that the shipping industry is on the brink of a technological revolution. Someone who has the vision to see where we're going and the brilliance to help us get there. This was it. This was the moment. Derek smoothed his jacket and prepared to step forward. I'm pleased to announce that I've found that partner, Caldwell said. And tonight, I want to introduce her to all of you. Her? Derek frowned. She came to me 3 years ago with nothing but a brilliant mind and a revolutionary technology. She had been discarded by people who didn't understand her value. She had been dismissed as worthless by those who couldn't see what she was capable of. But I saw, and I invested. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Tonight, I'm not just introducing a business partner, Caldwell continued. I'm introducing the new majority shareholder and CEO of Caldwell Maritime America, the woman who will lead our expansion into the North American market, the woman whose logistics algorithm has already increased our efficiency by 47%. Derek's blood ran cold. Logistics algorithm. No, it couldn't be. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Elena Marsh. The crowd erupted into applause. Derek didn't hear it. He didn't hear anything except the sound of his own heartbeat thundering in his ears, because Elena was walking down the grand staircase, and she looked nothing like the woman he had divorced. The Elena he remembered was soft and tired, dressed in faded cardigans and practical shoes. She had walked with her head down, trying to take up as little space as possible. She had been invisible. This woman was a queen. She wore a gown of deep emerald green that caught the light like liquid jewels. Her hair was sleek and dark, cascading over bare shoulders that gleamed under the chandeliers. Around her neck hung a diamond necklace that Derek recognized from magazine covers. The Star of the North, worth more than everything he had ever owned combined. But it was her face that stopped his heart. The softness was gone. In its place were sharp cheekbones and perfectly painted lips and eyes that scanned the room with absolute confidence. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She simply descended the stairs like she owned every person in the room. Because she did. "Oh my God," Megan whispered, suddenly appearing at Derek's side. "Is that—" "Don't," Derek said through clenched teeth. "Don't say her name." "But that's your—" "I know who it is." Elena reached the bottom of the staircase. Caldwell offered her his arm, and she took it with the easy grace of someone who had been doing this her entire life. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. People who had ignored Derek all evening were now bowing their heads to his ex-wife. Men who had refused to take his calls were laughing at whatever she whispered to them. Women who had looked at Megan with disdain were now watching Elena with a mixture of jealousy and awe. "Thank you, Richard." Elena's voice carried across the room, clear and confident. "And thank you all for being here tonight." She paused, letting the silence stretch. 3 years ago, I walked out of a lawyer's office with $40 and a rescue dog. I was told I was worthless. I was told I would fail. I was told that without certain people in my life, I was nothing. Derek felt every eye in the room turn toward him. They knew. Everyone knew. "But here's what I've learned," Elena continued. "Your value is not determined by the people who discard you. It's determined by what you build when they're not looking." The crowd erupted into applause. Elena raised her hand for silence. "Caldwell Maritime America is about to undergo a revolution. We're cutting the dead weight. We're severing ties with inefficient partners. And we're looking for people who share our values: loyalty, integrity, and vision." She paused again. "Qualities that I've found are surprisingly rare in this industry." Her eyes swept across the room and stopped directly on Derek. For one long, terrible moment, their gazes locked. Elena didn't smile. She didn't frown. She simply looked at him with an expression of perfect indifference, like he was a stranger she had passed on the street. Then she looked away. "Enjoy the evening," she said. "And remember, the winter solstice is the longest night of the year. But after tonight, the days only get brighter." She handed the microphone back to Caldwell, and the orchestra swelled into a waltz. The spell broke. The crowd rushed toward Elena, desperate to shake her hand, to introduce themselves, to curry favor with the new queen of American shipping. Derek stood frozen. "We have to leave," Megan said urgently, tugging at his arm. "Everyone is staring at us." "I'm not leaving." "Derek, she just humiliated you in front of everyone." "I said I'm not leaving." He pushed through the crowd toward Elena. People stepped aside, but not for him. They were moving to let him pass because they wanted to see what would happen. They wanted to watch the show. Elena was surrounded by admirers when Derek finally reached her. "Elena!" The conversation around her stopped. Elena turned slowly. Her eyes met his, and for just a moment, Derek saw something flicker in their depths. Something that might have been satisfaction. "Mr. Whitmore," she said coolly. "I was wondering when you'd come over." "It's Derek, your husband, remember?" "Ex-husband. And I have an excellent memory. I remember everything." The people around them exchanged uncomfortable glances, but didn't leave. No one wanted to miss this. "Can we talk?" Derek asked. "Somewhere private?" "Why? So you can tell me how incredible I look? How you always knew I had this in me? Elena tilted her head slightly. Or maybe you want to talk business. Whitmore Freight and Caldwell Maritime? A partnership, perhaps. Elena, because I have to tell you, Derek, I reviewed Whitmore Freight's financials this morning. Very interesting reading. Derek's face went pale. That's confidential corporate information. It's due diligence. I'm considering all potential partners in the Boston market. And what I found in your files was concerning. What are you talking about? Elena gestured, and a waiter appeared with a slim leather folder. She opened it casually, like she was checking a restaurant menu. Overcharging clients for fuel surcharges. Delayed shipments blamed on weather when the weather was perfectly clear. And my personal favorite, using company funds to pay a personal mortgage on a house you can no longer afford. Derek grabbed her arm. Stop! Two massive security guards materialized out of nowhere. Elena didn't flinch. Remove your hand, Derek, she said softly, or my friends here will remove it for you. Derek let go. That's better. Elena closed the folder. Now, where were we? Oh yes, Whitmore Freight. What do you want? What do I want? Elena laughed softly. I don't want anything from you, Derek. I never did. That's what you never understood. Then why are you doing this? Why did you invite me here? I didn't invite you. Richard did. He thought it would be entertaining. Entertaining? Richard has a particular sense of humor. He likes to watch people squirm. She leaned closer, lowering her voice so only Derek could hear. But I'll let you in on a secret. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't scheme to destroy you. I simply built my own empire. What's happening to Whitmore Freight isn't revenge. It's gravity. What does that mean? It means that when you built your company on my work without giving me credit, you created a house of cards. The algorithm that runs your entire operation? I wrote it. Every line, every function. And version 1.0 is very, very different from version 4.7. Derek felt the floor tilting beneath him. You sabotaged my company. I didn't sabotage anything. I simply stopped updating the software I wrote for free. Your system is running on code that's 3 years out of date. Meanwhile, every one of your competitors is using my new system, the one I actually own. You can't do this. I already did. Elena stepped back. Oh, and Derek, as of 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Caldwell Maritime is invoking the breach of faith clause in our contract with Whitmore Freight. Your contract is terminated, effective immediately. Derek grabbed her arm again. You'll bankrupt me. The security guards moved forward. Elena held up a hand, stopping them. Derek, she said quietly, I'm going to give you one piece of advice. The only advice I'll ever give you again. What? Walk away. Right now. Take whatever money you have left and disappear. Start over somewhere else. Because what's coming for you isn't just bankruptcy. It's everything. What does that mean? It means the SEC is very interested in your creative accounting practices. It means the IRS has questions about certain deductions. It means the lawyers are circling, and they smell blood. You did this. You reported me. I didn't have to. You left a trail so obvious that a first-year auditor could follow it. I just made sure the right people were paying attention. Derek's vision blurred. The room seemed to be spinning around him. Why? He whispered. I know I wasn't a good husband. I know I made mistakes. But why destroy me? Elena looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was almost sad. Do you remember the day we got married, Derek? The vows we made? What does that have to do with anything? You promised to love me, to honor me, to cherish me. Do you remember what I promised? Derek didn't answer. I promised to stand beside you, to support you, to help you build something great. Elena's eyes hardened. And I did. For 8 years, I poured everything I had into you. My time, my energy, my intelligence, my love. And what did you give me in return? Elena, you gave me nothing, Derek. You took and took and took, and when there was nothing left to take, you threw me away. You called me dead weight. You let your mother call me the help. You replaced me with a child who can barely spell her own name. I'm not finished. Elena's voice cut through his protest like a knife. I'm not destroying you, Derek. I'm showing you what destruction looks like. When you divorced me, you didn't just take my dignity. You took credit for my work. You built your entire company on my brain and told everyone it was yours. That's not just betrayal. That's theft. It wasn't theft. We were married. What's yours was mine. And what was yours was mine? Elena raised an eyebrow. Then where's my share of Whitmore Freight? Where's my credit for the algorithm that made your company successful? Where's my name on any of the patents you filed? Derek had no answer. You erased me, Derek. You made me invisible. And then you threw me away like I was nothing. Elena stepped back. So no, I'm not destroying you. I'm just finally taking credit for my own work. If you get destroyed in the process, that's not my problem. It's yours. She turned to walk away. Elena, wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, Derek said. I'm sorry for everything. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry I cheated. I'm sorry I took credit for your work. I'm sorry I let my mother treat you like garbage. I'm sorry. Elena turned around slowly. Do you know what's funny, Derek? 3 years ago, an apology might have meant something. 3 years ago, I still loved you enough to forgive you. I would have given you another chance. I would have believed that you could change. So give me another chance now. No. Why not? Because I don't love you anymore. Elena said it simply, without anger or sadness. I spent 3 years building a life without you. A life I'm proud of. A life I created with my own hands and my own mind. And somewhere in those 3 years, I realized something important. What? I realized that I was never nothing. I was always everything. You just convinced me otherwise, because it was easier to control me if I didn't know my own worth. She turned to the security guards. Please escort Mr. Whitmore and his guest to the exit. They're upsetting the atmosphere. Elena, please. Goodbye, Derek. I hope she was worth it. The security guards grabbed Derek's arms. Get off me, he snarled, struggling. Do you know who I am? Yes, sir, one of the guards said calmly. You're the man who's leaving. They dragged him backward across the polished floor. The crowd watched in silence. No one intervened. No one spoke up for him. Megan was nowhere to be seen. She had already fled, probably calling a car to take her somewhere far away from the disaster unfolding around her. Derek's last glimpse of the ballroom was Elena's face, watching him go with an expression of perfect indifference. Then the doors closed, and he was outside in the cold. The guards released him. Have a good evening, sir, one of them said, without a trace of irony. They went back inside. Derek stood alone on the wet pavement, rain beginning to fall, his tuxedo ruined, his reputation destroyed, his company dead. And somewhere behind those gilded doors, his ex-wife was accepting congratulations, shaking hands with billionaires, and building an empire on the ashes of his humiliation. He had lost. He had lost everything. And the worst part was, he knew he deserved it. But even as he stood there in the rain, watching his life crumble around him, a dark thought crept into his mind. Elena had taken everything from him. But there was one thing she didn't know about. One asset she hadn't accounted for. The source code. The original algorithm that Elena had written, the one that still ran Whitmore Freight's systems. Derek had a copy. A master flash drive with the entire uncompiled source code. If he couldn't have his company, he would sell the engine before she could repo the car. It was a desperate plan. A stupid plan. The kind of plan that only a man with nothing left to lose would consider. But Derek Whitmore was exactly that kind of man. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he had sworn he would never call. Thomas Grant, CEO of Omni Logistics, Caldwell Maritime's biggest competitor. The phone rang twice. Hello? Mr. Grant, this is Derek Whitmore. I have something you might be interested in. I'm listening. The source code for Elena Marsh's original logistics algorithm. Every line, every function, the foundation of everything she's built. There was a long pause. Meet me at the Harbor Diner in 1 hour, Grant said. Come alone. Derek hung up. He looked back at the glowing windows of the Fairmont, where Elena was dancing with the future, while he plotted in the shadows. She thought she had won. She thought she had taken everything. But Derek Whitmore wasn't finished yet. If he was going down, he was taking her with him. The Harbor Diner sat on the outskirts of Boston like a forgotten memory. Derek pushed through the door at 11:43, 17 minutes early. The place was nearly empty. A tired waitress wiped down a counter that would never be clean. A cook scraped a grill that had seen better decades. The smell of burnt coffee and old grease hung in the air like regret. Derek chose a booth in the back corner, facing the door. He pulled the silver flash drive from his pocket and set it on the table. Such a small thing, smaller than his thumb. But inside it was everything. Every line of code Elena had ever written. Every algorithm that had made Whitmore Freight successful. Every function that now powered Caldwell Maritime's revolutionary logistics system. At least, the original version. Derek didn't know exactly what Elena had changed in the 3 years since the divorce. He didn't understand the technical details, but he knew that Thomas Grant did, and he knew that Omni Logistics would pay a fortune for even a glimpse at the foundation of their competitor's technology. The door opened. Thomas Grant walked in alone, wearing a cashmere overcoat that cost more than the diner's monthly rent. He was 62 years old, silver-haired, with a face that had been hardened by decades of corporate warfare. He spotted Derek and walked over without acknowledging anyone else in the room. Mr. Whitmore. Mr. Grant, thank you for coming. Grant slid into the booth across from him. He didn't remove his coat. He didn't order anything. He simply stared at Derek with eyes that had destroyed better men. I watched the gala tonight, Grant said. From a distance, of course. I wasn't invited. Neither was I, apparently. Not really. Your ex-wife put on quite a show. She's good at that. She's good at a lot of things, it seems. Grant leaned back. 3 years ago, she was nobody. Tonight, she's the most powerful woman in American shipping. That's quite a transformation. She had help. Obviously. Richard Caldwell doesn't invest in nobodies. He saw something in her that you clearly missed. Derek's jaw tightened. I didn't miss anything. I just didn't realize she was stealing from me. Stealing? The algorithm, the logistics system. She developed it while we were married. She used my company's resources, my computers, my office space. It belongs to Whitmore Freight. Grant's expression didn't change. Does it? Because from what I understand, she filed a patent 3 years ago, in her name, dated before your divorce. A technicality. Patents aren't technicalities, Mr. Whitmore. They're legal documents. If her name is on the patent and your company's name isn't, then it doesn't matter where she developed it. It's hers. Derek pushed the flash drive across the table. Then consider this a gift. Grant looked at the drive but didn't touch it. What exactly is on this? The original source code, version 1.0 of the algorithm that now runs Caldwell Maritime's entire North American operation. Every function, every process, every line of code she wrote before she walked out that door. And what makes you think this has any value? Because it's the foundation. Because whoever understands the foundation can understand the building. Because your engineers could reverse engineer her improvements if they just had a starting point. Grant was silent for a long moment. How much? 10 million. That's a lot of money for outdated code. It's not outdated. It's foundational. And once you have it, you can build your own version. A competitor to Caldwell Maritime, a system that doesn't require paying licensing fees to my ex-wife. Grant drummed his fingers on the table. You realize what you're doing is illegal. I realize what she did to me is worse. That's not how the law works. I don't care about the law. I care about survival. Derek leaned forward. Tomorrow morning, the SEC is going to freeze my assets. The IRS is going to launch an audit. Caldwell Maritime is going to terminate every contract I have. By this time next week, I won't be able to afford a cup of coffee at this diner. But if you give me 10 million tonight, I can disappear, start over somewhere else. And you get the keys to Elena Marsh's kingdom. Grant studied him for a long moment. Show me. Derek pulled a laptop from his bag and opened it on the table. He plugged in the flash drive. Watch this. It's beautiful. He typed in his admin password. The screen filled with cascading lines of green code. Functions and processes and algorithms scrolled past, too fast to read. The first Victor recorder. What about note functions and processes? $2,000. Functions and processes and algorithms scrolled past to make people. Functions and processes and algorithms scrolled past, too fast. Functions and processes and algorithms scrolled past, $2,000. Functions and processes and algorithms scrolled past, $2,000. Functions and processes and note functions and algorithms scrolled past, $2,000. Functions and processes 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 and algorithms scrolled past, $2,000. Functions and processes, an algorithm scrolled past $2,000. Functions and processes, an algorithm scrolled past $2,000. Functions and processes, an algorithm scrolled past $2,000. Functions, specially historted, for something helpin' heard of the runk, without 215. Having nose to the short, do in the world. Having nose to the port, do in the world. Functions has been reading the straith per the call, ever people, which listen to approaches to a verse with climb. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Would helpin' heard his concern to fall with a call. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Would helpin' heard the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Would helpin' heard the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner of cuppities of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Having recorded the corner companies of the world base approaches to the verter. Too fast to read, but impressive in their complexity. This is the core processor, Derek explained, pointing at the screen. It automates 90% of the dispatch work. It's the reason Whitmore Freight was ever successful. It's the reason Elena caught Richard Caldwell's attention. Grant leaned closer, his eyes scanning the code with genuine interest. Impressive. If this is real. The code stopped moving. A red dialog box appeared in the center of the screen. Access denied. Unauthorized user detected. Grant pulled back. What is this? A glitch. Derek typed frantically. Let me bypass the firewall. He entered his override command. admin_Whitmore_01. The screen flashed red again. Command not recognized. Initiating protocol Ghostwriter. Ghostwriter? Grant's voice hardened. What the hell is Ghostwriter? Before Derek could answer, the code on the screen began to delete itself. Line by line, the complex algorithms vanished. The functions disappeared. The processes evaporated. 3 years of work, erased in real time. Make it stop, Grant demanded. It's wiping the drive. I can't. Derek slammed the escape key. It's locked me out. The screen went blank. Then a video window opened. Elena appeared on the screen, but it wasn't the Elena from tonight. It wasn't the queen in the emerald gown with diamonds around her neck. This was the Elena from 3 years ago. She was sitting in the small study at the Beacon Hill penthouse, the room Derek had called her crying room. She was wearing the same beige cardigan she had worn to the divorce proceedings. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. "Hello, Derek." Derek stared at the screen, paralyzed. "If you're seeing this," the video Elena said, "it means you tried to sell the source code. I knew you would. You never understood how to build things, only how to sell them." Grant looked at Derek with a mixture of disgust and fascination. She knew. She knew you would do this. Shut up. "You always took credit for the algorithm," the video continued. "You told investors you hired a team in California. You told magazines you were a genius. You forgot who stayed up until 4 in the morning fixing the bugs. You forgot who wrote the core processor while you were sleeping off your hangovers." "This is insane," Derek whispered. "There was no team, Derek. It was just me. And because I knew you, because I knew exactly what kind of man you are, I embedded a ghost protocol in the core architecture. The code only works as long as I authorize it. The moment you try to transfer it to an external server, it evaporates." Elena leaned closer to the camera. "The code isn't yours, Derek. It never was. It's intellectual property registered to Elena Marsh Designs, dated 4 years ago. You've been leasing my brain for free, and the lease is up." The video cut to black. The laptop screen went blue. "Drive corrupted. 0 bytes remaining." Silence filled the diner. Thomas Grant closed the laptop slowly. He stood up. "You tried to sell me vaporware," he said quietly. "You tried to sell me stolen property that didn't even exist." "Thomas, wait." Derek grabbed his sleeve. "I can fix this. I can get her to unlock it. I can—" Grant pulled his arm away with a look of pure contempt. "You're radioactive, Whitmore. If you ever contact me or anyone in my industry again, I will have you arrested for corporate espionage. Do you understand?" "I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. You're a fraud. You've always been a fraud. And your ex-wife just proved it to both of us." Grant walked out of the diner without looking back. The door swung shut behind him. Derek sat alone in the booth, staring at the blue screen of death. The waitress walked over, popping her gum. "You gonna order something, honey?" Derek reached for his wallet. He opened it. Empty. He had given his last 20 to the Uber driver who had brought him here after the security guards took his car keys at the gala. His credit cards were frozen. His checking account was overdrawn. He had nothing. "I can't pay," he whispered. The waitress looked at his ruined tuxedo, his broken expression, his trembling hands. "Another one of those nights, huh?" she sighed. "Get out of here before I call the cops." Derek Whitmore, the man who had once graced the cover of Forbes, walked out of the Harbor Diner into the pouring rain. He had no car, no home, no company, no wife. And now, no code. He started walking. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he couldn't stop. If he stopped, he would have to think. If he thought, he would have to face what he had become. The rain soaked through his tuxedo within minutes. His Italian leather shoes filled with water. His hair plastered to his forehead. He walked past closed stores and empty parking lots and homeless encampments where people looked up at him with curiosity before going back to their own misery. He walked for hours. By the time the sun began to rise, he found himself standing in front of the Caldwell Maritime Building in downtown Boston. It was a tower of glass and steel, 60 stories tall, with the company logo gleaming at the top like a crown. Elena's building. Elena's empire. Elena's victory. Derek stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the tower, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life. "Mr. Whitmore." Derek turned. Mr. Prescott stood behind him, holding an umbrella. He looked exactly the same as he had at the gala, dry, calm, unaffected by the chaos swirling around him. "You again." "Me again." Prescott offered a small, predatory smile. "You look terrible." "What do you want?" "I represent Aurelia Holdings. We're the company that purchased your debt from First Boston Trust yesterday afternoon." Derek felt something cold settle in his stomach. "My debt?" "All of it. The business loans, the line of credit, the personal guarantee you signed against your house. Aurelia Holdings now owns everything you owe." "And who exactly is Aurelia Holdings?" Prescott reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Derek took it with numb fingers. "Aurelia Holdings, sole proprietor, Elena Marsh." The card fell from his hand. "She bought my debt." "Every penny of it." Prescott bent down and picked up the card, tucking it back into his pocket. "Ms. Marsh has instructed me to call in the loans immediately. You have 24 hours to pay $42 million, or we seize the assets. The building, the software, the brand, everything." "I don't have $42 million. "I'm aware." "I don't have $42. "I'm aware of that as well." Derek grabbed Prescott's lapels. "This is illegal. You can't do this." "There are laws. There are protections. You can't just—" "Everything Ms. Marsh has done is perfectly legal, Mr. Whitmore. She purchased distressed debt at a discount, as investors do every day. She's calling in loans that are past due, as creditors are entitled to do. There's nothing illegal about any of it. It's revenge. It's business." Prescott gently removed Derek's hands from his coat. "Though I imagine the two feel very similar from where you're standing." "What does she want? I'll give her whatever she wants. Just tell me what she wants." Prescott considered the question. "You know, I asked her that very question this morning. Do you know what she said?" "What?" "She said, 'I want him to understand.' When I asked what she wanted you to understand, she said that he was never the one holding me up. I was the one holding him up. And now that I've let go, there's nothing left to catch him." Derek's legs gave out. He sank to his knees on the wet sidewalk, his tuxedo ruined, his life destroyed, his pride shattered. Prescott stood over him, dry under his umbrella, watching without emotion. "I suggest you vacate the premises of Whitmore Freight by noon. Security will be there to supervise the transition. As for your personal residence, you have until tomorrow morning before the locks are changed." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not really my concern, Mr. Whitmore." Prescott turned to walk away, then paused. "Though I suppose I should mention one more thing." "What?" "Ms. Marsh left something for you. A final gesture, she called it." Prescott pulled an envelope from his coat and dropped it at Derek's feet. "Have a pleasant day, Mr. Whitmore. Whatever's left of it." He walked away, his umbrella disappearing into the morning crowd. Derek knelt on the sidewalk, rain dripping down his face, staring at the envelope. He didn't want to open it. He knew it would only hurt more. But he had nothing left. No dignity, no hope, no reason to protect himself from whatever final blow Elena had prepared. He tore open the envelope. Inside was a photograph. A small cabin by a lake. The dump he had let Elena keep in the divorce. The worthless piece of property that wasn't even worth fighting over. But in the photograph, the cabin wasn't a dump anymore. It had been completely renovated. New siding, new windows, a wraparound porch with 2 rocking chairs, warm light spilling from inside like a beacon. On the back of the photograph, Elena had written a note in her careful handwriting. "Derek, this was the only thing you let me keep. I built an empire from this porch. You can have it back now. It's the only property in your name that I didn't buy. I paid off the mortgage for you. Consider it severance. I don't hate you, Derek. I stopped hating you the day I realized you never had the power to define me. Only I could do that. I hope you find peace. I hope you learn that success isn't about what you take from others. It's about what you build with your own hands. This cabin is yours, a place to start over, a place to figure out who you want to be when you're not trying to be better than everyone else. I won't contact you again. I won't help you again. This is the last gift I will ever give you. Use it wisely. Elena. Derek read the note 3 times. Then he started to cry. Not the angry tears of a man who had been cheated, not the bitter tears of a man who had lost a battle. These were the broken tears of a man who had finally seen himself clearly. He had spent 8 years convincing Elena she was worthless, and she had spent 3 years proving that she was everything. He had thrown away a diamond because he wanted glittery glass. Now the diamond was worth billions, and he was sitting on a wet sidewalk with nothing but a photograph of the life he had destroyed. She had given him the cabin, not as revenge, not as mockery, as mercy. And somehow, that was worse than anything else she could have done, because it meant she had moved beyond him completely. She didn't hate him. She didn't love him. She simply didn't think about him at all. Derek pushed himself to his feet. He looked up at the Caldwell Maritime Tower one last time. Then he turned and started walking. He didn't know how he would get to the lake house. He didn't know what he would do when he got there. He only knew that he had nothing left but the mercy of the woman he had thrown away. And for the first time in his life, Derek Whitmore was going to have to build something from nothing. Just like Elena had done. Just like he should have done all along. The rain continued to fall, washing away the last remnants of the man he used to be. Somewhere in the city behind him, Elena Marsh was starting her first full day as CEO of Caldwell Maritime America. She didn't look out the window. She didn't think about Derek. She simply picked up her phone and got to work. Because empires don't build themselves. And Elena had wasted enough time on men who couldn't see her worth. From now on, she would only spend time on things that deserved her attention. Derek Whitmore was no longer one of those things. He never had been. The bus ride to Lake Winnipesaukee took 6 hours. Derek sat in the back row, his ruined tuxedo drawing stares from the other passengers. A grandmother with a shopping bag. A college student with headphones. A mother with 2 small children who kept turning around to look at the strange man in the fancy clothes who smelled like rain and failure. He didn't care. He stared out the window and watched Boston disappear behind him. The city where he had built his empire. The city where he had lost everything. The city where Elena Marsh had risen from the ashes of their marriage like a phoenix made of diamonds and determination. The bus stopped in a small town called Meredith just after sunset. Derek stepped off onto a sidewalk that hadn't seen new pavement in 20 years. The air smelled like pine trees and wood smoke. A general store across the street had a handwritten sign that said, "Closed for the season." He had no phone. It had died somewhere around Worcester, and he had no charger, no way to call anyone. No one to call, anyway. He started walking. The lake house was 7 miles from the bus station. He knew the route from memory, from the summers when Elena had begged him to spend weekends there instead of attending another networking event in the city. He had always said no. The cabin was beneath him. The town was boring. The people were simple. Now the cabin was all he had. The walk took him 2 hours in the dark. His feet blistered inside his waterlogged Italian shoes. His legs ached. His lungs burned from the cold air. But he kept walking because stopping meant thinking. and thinking meant feeling, and feeling meant confronting the truth he had been running from for 3 years. He had been the villain all along. The cabin appeared around a bend in the road just after 9 o'clock. Derek stopped and stared. It was exactly like the photograph, but somehow more real. The new cedar siding glowed warm in the moonlight. The windows reflected the stars. A light was on inside, which meant someone had been here recently to turn it on. Elena. She had prepared this for him. Not as revenge, not as mockery, as a final act of grace from a woman who owed him nothing and had given him everything anyway. Derek walked up the porch steps. The key was under the mat. A handwritten note was taped to the door. The fridge is stocked. The heat is on. The phone is connected. Don't call me. E. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The interior had been completely transformed. New hardwood floors. A modern kitchen with granite countertops. A stone fireplace with logs already laid and ready to light. Comfortable furniture that looked like it had been chosen with care. On the kitchen counter was a binder. Derek picked it up and opened it. It was a renovation log. 3 years of entries in Elena's careful handwriting. October 12th, 2021. Replaced the roof myself. Watched YouTube videos until 3 a.m. to learn how. Saved $4,000. November 5th, 2021. The view of the sunrise is worth every penny. First time I've felt peaceful in years. December 24th, 2021. First Christmas alone. I thought I'd be sad. Instead, I feel free. The silence isn't lonely anymore. It's full. March 15th, 2022. The patent was approved today. I cried for an hour. Not because I was happy about the money, because I finally have proof that I was never worthless. June 3rd, 2022. Met with Richard Caldwell. He offered me $20 million. I said no. I'm not ready yet. I need to understand exactly what I'm worth before I let anyone else put a price on it. September 1st, 2022. The algorithm is working better than I ever imagined. I've been approached by Amazon, FedEx, and 3 major shipping companies. I'm not selling. I'm building. January 1st, 2023. New year, new life. I don't think about Derek anymore. Not with anger, not with sadness. I just don't think about him at all. And that feels like the biggest victory. Derek closed the binder. He sat down at the kitchen table and put his head in his hands. For the first time in his adult life, he cried without trying to stop himself. He cried for the man he had been, the arrogant fool who had confused cruelty for strength. He cried for the marriage he had destroyed. 8 years of Elena's love, wasted on someone who couldn't see what he had. He cried for the future he had lost, the life they could have built together if he had just been a little less selfish, a little more kind. And he cried for Elena, for the woman who had walked out of his life with nothing and built an empire while he was busy tearing himself down. She hadn't needed him. She had never needed him. He had just convinced her otherwise because it made him feel powerful. The phone on the wall rang. Derek stared at it. Elena had said the phone was connected. She had also said, "Don't call me." But someone was calling him. He picked up the receiver. "Hello?" "Derek?" The voice on the other end was his mother's. "Thank God! I've been trying to reach you for hours." "How did you get this number?" "Elena's lawyer sent it to me this morning, along with a very detailed list of assets that have been seized from your company." "Mother, I'm not calling to lecture you, Derek. I'm calling to tell you something important." Derek sank into a chair. What? Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, smaller, older. I saw her tonight. Elena. On the news. I know. She's the CEO of Caldwell Maritime. Yes, I saw the pictures. The dress. The diamonds. The way everyone was looking at her like she was royalty. Victoria paused. She looked happy, Derek. Why are you telling me this? Because I spent 8 years telling you she wasn't good enough. I spent 8 years calling her the help and criticizing her clothes and making her feel like she didn't belong. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. I was wrong. Derek didn't know what to say. I was wrong about her, and I was wrong about what I taught you. I taught you that success meant crushing people weaker than you. I taught you that love was about finding someone who made you look good. I taught you that power was more important than kindness. Mother, let me finish. Victoria took a breath. When your father left me, I was furious. Not heartbroken. Furious. I spent 30 years trying to prove he was wrong to leave. I climbed social ladders and accumulated wealth and surrounded myself with people who were impressed by my success. And I raised you to do the same thing. You raised me to be strong. I raised you to be hard. There's a difference. Victoria's voice softened. Elena was never weak, Derek. She was soft, gentle, kind. I mistook those things for weakness because I had forgotten what they felt like. And I taught you to mistake them too. Derek looked around the cabin. At the walls, Elena had repaired with her own hands. At the floors, she had sanded and stained herself. At the life she had built from nothing, while everyone around her said she was worthless. She gave me the cabin, he said quietly. I know. She paid off the mortgage. She stocked the fridge. She left the heat on. Derek's voice broke. Why would she do that? After everything I did to her? After everything you did to her? Why would she give me anything? Because she's not like us, Derek. Victoria sounded tired. She never was. That's what made her special. And that's what we tried to destroy. The line was quiet for a long moment. What do I do now? Derek asked. It was the first time in his life he had asked his mother for advice without already knowing what he wanted her to say. I don't know. I've never known how to start over. I only know how to keep climbing. Victoria paused. But maybe that's your answer. Maybe you need to learn something I never did. What's that? How to be happy without winning. How to find peace without power. How to be someone worth loving instead of someone worth fearing. I don't know if I can do that. Then learn. You have time now. You have nothing but time. Derek looked out the window at the frozen lake. The moonlight reflected off the ice like scattered diamonds. She wrote in her renovation journal that she cried when her patent was approved, he said. Not because she was rich, because she finally had proof she was never worthless. Victoria was quiet. I spent 8 years making her feel worthless, Derek continued. I let you make her feel worthless. And she was building an empire in her spare time while I was taking credit for her work. Yes. I'm the one who was worthless. I'm the one who never contributed anything. Everything I had, everything I built, it was all because of her. And I was too stupid to see it. So what are you going to do about it? Derek set down the phone and walked to the window. Outside, the world was dark and quiet and cold. Inside, the cabin was warm and safe and filled with evidence of Elena's strength. He picked up the phone again. I'm going to stay here, he said. I'm going to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be better than everyone else. And I'm going to learn how to build something with my own hands. And Elena? I'm going to leave her alone. She asked me not to contact her, and I'm going to respect that. It's the least I can do. That sounds like growth, Derek. It sounds like basic human decency. I should have learned it 45 years ago. Victoria laughed softly. It was the first genuine laugh Derek had heard from her in years. I love you, she said. I know I don't say it enough. I know I show love through criticism and control and impossible expectations. But I love you. And I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I love you too, Mother. He hung up. The cabin was quiet. Derek walked to the fireplace and lit the logs Elena had left for him. The flames caught quickly, filling the room with warmth and the smell of burning wood. He found a blanket on the couch and wrapped it around himself. Then he sat in front of the fire and watched the flames dance. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to prove. No meetings to attend, no investors to impress, no competitors to crush, no wife to neglect, no employees to blame, no mother to please. Just silence. Just stillness. Just the opportunity to become someone new. Outside, the winter wind howled across the frozen lake. But inside, the cabin was warm, and Derek Whitmore began the long, slow process of learning how to be human again. 300 miles away, in the penthouse office of Caldwell Maritime, Elena Marsh worked late into the night. Her desk was covered with contracts and proposals and strategic plans. Her computer screen glowed with spreadsheets and projections. Her phone buzzed with messages from investors and partners and journalists who wanted interviews with the woman who had come from nowhere to conquer an industry. But she wasn't looking at any of it. She was looking at a photograph. An old photograph, worn at the edges, from the first year of her marriage. She and Derek were standing in front of the lake house. The cabin was falling apart behind them, but they were smiling. Derek had his arm around her shoulders. She was leaning into him like he was the only solid thing in the world. They had been happy then, before the money, before the success, before Victoria's poison and Megan's betrayal and all the small cruelties that had eroded their love like water wearing away stone. They had been happy. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Margaret Chen entered, holding 2 cups of tea. "I thought you might need this," she said, setting 1 cup on Elena's desk. "Thank you." Margaret noticed the photograph. "That's an old picture. I found it while I was packing up the cabin. I thought I had thrown them all away." "Why didn't you?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "Because I don't want to forget who I was." The woman in this photograph believed that love could fix everything. She believed that if she just tried harder, worked harder, loved harder, she could make her marriage work. Elena set the photograph down. She was wrong, but she wasn't stupid. She was just hopeful. "Do you miss her? That version of yourself?" "Sometimes. She was kinder than I am now, more forgiving, more willing to see the good in people." Elena picked up her tea. But she was also easier to hurt, easier to manipulate, easier to convince that she was worthless. "And now?" "Now I'm harder, stronger, more careful about who I let into my life." Elena looked at Margaret. "I don't know if that's better or worse. I just know it's different. It's survival." "Maybe, but sometimes I wonder if I lost something along the way, some part of myself that I can't get back." Margaret sat down across from her. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." "I've known you for 15 years, since before you met Derek, since before any of this." Margaret gestured at the penthouse office, the city lights, the empire Elena had built. "And I can tell you that you haven't lost anything. You've just learned to protect the soft parts of yourself. They're still there. You just don't show them to people who haven't earned the right to see them. Elena smiled slightly. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You were just too busy building an empire to notice. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, drinking their tea. He's at the cabin, Margaret said finally. I know. How do you feel about that? Elena considered the question. I feel finished. Like closing a book I've been reading for too long. The story is over. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was an ending. And now I can start something new. Do you think he'll change? I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. His journey is his own now. I've given him everything I'm going to give. A place to live, a chance to start over. More mercy than he ever showed me. That's very generous. It's not generous. It's practical. Elena set down her tea. If I had destroyed him completely, I would have had to carry that weight for the rest of my life. The satisfaction of revenge only lasts a moment, but the guilt lingers forever. So you gave him the cabin to free yourself? I gave him the cabin because I'm tired of being defined by my relationship to him. I'm tired of being Derek Whitmore's ex-wife, or the woman Derek Whitmore threw away. I want to be Elena Marsh, just Elena Marsh. A woman who built something incredible and didn't need anyone's permission to do it. Margaret raised her teacup. To Elena Marsh. Elena clinked her cup against Margaret's. To new beginnings. They drank. Outside the window, the city of Boston glittered like a box of scattered jewels. Somewhere in that city, people were working and dreaming and struggling and hoping. Somewhere in that city, a young woman was sitting in a cramped apartment, wondering if she would ever be more than what the world told her she could be. Elena had been that woman once. She hoped that woman would find her way. I should get back to work, Elena said. We have a board meeting tomorrow, and I need to prepare the expansion projections. It can wait until morning. It could, but I don't want it to, Elena smiled. I spent 8 years waiting for Derek to notice me, waiting for Victoria to accept me, waiting for permission to be myself. She turned to face the window, looking out at the city she was about to conquer. I'm done waiting. I'm done asking. I'm done hoping that someone else will see my worth. She picked up her pen. From now on, I'm building, and anyone who can't keep up can get out of the way. Margaret stood up. That's the Elena I remember. She never left. She was just taking notes. Margaret laughed and walked to the door. Good night, Elena. Good night, Margaret. The door clicked shut. Elena was alone. She looked at the photograph one last time, the young woman smiling into the camera, believing that love was enough. Then she opened her desk drawer and put the photograph inside. Not thrown away, not forgotten, just filed. Part of a story that was over now. She picked up her pen and started writing. Tomorrow, she would announce Caldwell Maritime's expansion into European markets. Next month, she would break ground on a new headquarters in Singapore. Next year, she would be the most powerful woman in the shipping industry. But tonight, she was just a woman at a desk, doing the work she loved, building something that was entirely her own. And that was enough. That was everything. 6 months later, a local newspaper in New Hampshire ran a small story about a man who had started a woodworking business in a cabin by Lake Winnipesaukee. The man made furniture by hand. Simple pieces, tables and chairs and bookshelves. He sold them at a farmer's market on Saturdays and donated the proceeds to a local women's shelter. The article mentioned that he had once been a successful businessman in Boston. It didn't mention his name. It didn't mention Elena Marsh. It just said that the man seemed happy, that he woke up early and worked with his hands and went to bed tired in the good way. That he had learned to build things instead of taking credit for what others built. That he had finally found peace. And far away in her office in Boston, Elena Marsh saw the article in her news feed. She read it once. Then she smiled. Not a smile of triumph. Not a smile of revenge. Just a small, quiet smile of completion. She closed the article and went back to work. The past was finally, completely behind her. And the future was waiting to be built. Because that's what Elena Marsh did. She built things. And she was just getting started. The end of this story isn't about revenge or destruction or watching enemies fall. It's about a woman who was told she was nothing and decided to prove otherwise. It's about the power of silence when the world expects you to scream. It's about building your own kingdom instead of begging for a place in someone else's. Elena Marsh didn't destroy Derek Whitmore. She simply stopped carrying him. And when she let go, there was nothing left to hold him up. That's the lesson. That's the truth. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never mistake kindness for stupidity. And never, ever underestimate a woman who has been told she is nothing. Because when she finally sees her own worth, she won't just rise, she will soar. And the people who tried to keep her down will spend the rest of their lives looking up.